Hopefully my head, I might zoom out a little bit more just because I really don't want my head to be cut off. I'd be so mad. I'd be so mad if I filmed this whole video and then my head was cut off. So what's up? Last month hang on, let me start a timer so I really don't. Okay. So, last month, hey, let me start this whole thing over. Check 1, 2, clap, snap. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another video that truly gave me so much life to say. It is a joyful thing to say. So what's up to another reading vlog? It's not another reading vlog. It's the first reading vlog, but I had to steal the As Told by Kenya, Lily Reed's intro, which we're going to talk about in a second. Hang on. But yeah, so last month I put out a video on Final Fantasy. That video was supposed to come out in like August of last year. Some things happened in my life. It was difficult. But yeah, I want to try to put out a video every month. I was looking actually just the other day. It was like the 12th year anniversary of my channel earlier this month or something ridiculous. And just like I have noticed the different points that I have like uploaded like periodically and like really put energy into it, like being able to express myself creatively and release that energy into the world is something that like I value and would like to put time back into. But like not every video can be like I read a bunch of essays and like played this game for so many hours and like came to these conclusions and wrote this whole thing. So I want to do something a little bit more casual sometimes, but like I would like to try to put something out every month. So anyway, this is gonna be a casual, lazy kind of reading vlog. Not necessarily lazy, not to say anything about the people that make this kind of content, because I do think there's effort put into it and a lot is still going into this video. It's just a different kind of effort. Anyway, so yeah, I have been watching a lot of reading vlogs this year, and so this vlog basically is going to be my best books of 2024. I'm going to talk about pretty much everything I read in 2024. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my reading journey, how we got to where I was in 2024. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some single issue comics that I need to catch up on, so if you're not interested in that, you might be able to skip. But even if you're just like a novel reader, if you read nonfiction and you stumble across this video, I would definitely encourage you to stick around for that part of the video. I think there's some interesting things that you'll be able to get away from it. And then we're going to talk about January, like a little TBR / reading wrap up. Hopefully I can fit that all in. I'm trying to make it smooth because I don't want this video to be like too far over an hour. I'm sure it will be around an hour, but I like don't want to hit like over an hour 15. You know if I succeeded or not. I do not. Yeah, I've been watching a lot of booktube content this year. I really got into book YouTubers thanks to especially As Told by Kenya, Lily Reed's, and Mayo Core are probably like my two favorite booktubers. I mean, Kenya is like one of my favorite YouTubers of all time, up there with Casually Comics, who also, you know, is kind of adjacent to the space, talking about comics. I always say what she does is more kind of video essay adjacent-ish. I mean, they're not really video essays, but like she has her own like formula down very, very much so, and it's not like the same like reading vlog type of thing that all of the beautiful black women on my feed have been doing. That I have just been, like I said, As Told by Kenya, Mayo Core, Chocolate Covered Pages is another one of my favorites. The Story Ain't Over. Mars, Junk Drawer, a young man, Dante. There was another young black man I saw on my feed. What is that man's name? I don't know. But I did subscribe to him. I just haven't watched any of his videos yet. The Voodoo Child, Fashionable Crow is another kind of like more video essay than like reading vlog, but her reading videos are awesome. Just so many beautiful black women, especially on my feed. I want to like, and I apologize because there are so many that I am missing that I have not like named by name, but I appreciate y'all and I love y'all content so much, and I am watching it. And like y'all just got to go look through my subs. So I was thinking like, am I gonna put them in the description and I'm gonna like share some posts of some of the stuff that but like there's no way I'm gonna be able to do it without missing some of y'all. So like, please just go stalk my subs if you're interested in listening to black people talk about books, especially. Like there's so much good content this year, and so that made me kind of want to do this. I don't know if I'll ever make another reading vlog. Maybe again if I need another like low energy, kind of less committal video, then I can do something like this again. But we'll see. I think I'm probably just going to do it for January and then maybe never again. But yeah, so I want the flow of this video to be kind of like smoother. There's not going to be a lot of cuts or jumping. I'm just going to kind of talk, and then we'll do like the little vlog section with the music. Like I'm really just going to ape an As Told by Kenya video, a Lily Reed's video. Like truly, I'm just trying to steal the flow. I'm just trying to copy the flow. Nothing else is happening here. So yeah, that's why I'm going to, yes, I'm a very verbose person. Listen, this is a small tangent, but I have to have this tangent because we know the internet loves to ruin AAVE, Ebonics, how black people talk, whatever you want to call it. Y'all don't know what the words mean, and then y'all ruin it. And then even sometimes black people end up using the words. But listen, so, like, we all know the worst one is woke. Like, obviously, woke was a very specific term that black people use to acknowledge the everyday racial oppression that they have in their lives within each other, to talk about that, right? And then now it just means whatever the fuck anybody wants it to mean. But the one that has really been on my nerve recently is yapping, because, listen, I don't know if y'all understand. Do you know what makes that sound? It's a small dog. Have you heard a small dog make that sound before? Have you been around a black person's house where a small dog that would probably make that sound, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it is not a good sound to make. Black people don't like that sound. Black people that have small dogs make sure their dogs do not make that sound very often. Like, yapping is talking about something that is unimportant. Like, if you, like, I just hate this string of people on the internet proclaiming proudly to be yappers. Like, y'all do not know what the word means. Stop putting it in your mouth, because clearly the connotation is lost on you. Anyway, to continue my previous thought, I'm very verbose. I like to speak a lot, so I did try to record this video once already, and it was just like way too long. And also, I was gonna do like a whole different vlog section of it, and then the queue line got shut down that day. It was a whole thing. And also, I just talked about all of the books for way too long. But so that's what we're gonna do. It's been too long that I have been preambling this. So let me talk about all of the books that I read last year. We're gonna talk about my reading journey a little bit, also, on how we got to here, and then we're gonna catch up on these single issue comics. So. A little bit about my reading journey. Like, I was definitely a big reader as a young person. In elementary school, middle school, I really, really enjoyed reading. When we were in like 5th grade, we lived like down the street, like truly like not even a full block away from the library. Like, I was walking to the library all the time. I have a very vivid memory of listening to a woman speak about her experience surviving the Holocaust, and like reading her book as well. Just reading up north with my great-grandparents, I have very fond memories of reading. As I got into high school, I definitely read for myself, like read casually less. I was like kind of getting into nonfiction at that time, though. I was very into music and learning about music theory. So there was like, I was like going on the internet and searching like different papers about music theory and orchestration, and like even like audiology and different things that I was kind of like parsing. Like, I don't think I finished any of those, like, like college level textbooks that I was just like trying to go read for fun on my own, but I was still engaging with reading in that way, right? And I was also very engaged in our classes. I just remember, especially junior and senior year, especially junior year, I went to a PWI, which is a whole different, like, we could make a whole different video about that. But it was just like my teacher was like a very small white woman, and the class, it was like not remedial, but like we were not the upper advanced level class, which when you go to like a private PWI, like it basically feels like being in remedial. Anyway, the point is, they were very disrespectful to her, and I really wanted to put energy into like actually like being a part of that class and spending time there. And I really enjoyed some of the stuff we read. Like we read Harry Potter that year, and I don't think I really read that, but we read Macbeth, and I really enjoyed when we did Macbeth. We did like the Curious Case of the Dog, the one dog one. I don't remember what the book's called. Listen, I'm not, but she gave me like a good book. Well, it was a J.K. Rowling book that I don't have anymore. I did a whole bit about this when I tried to record the video last time, because I tried to find it. I thought I did still have the book. I did DNF it also because it was just like way too horny about middle schoolers within like the first couple pages. It was just J.K. Rowling things. But yeah, so then when I graduated, I got into college, like I did college reading courses. I did some Shakespeare, and reading in those was always very fun and engaging. And then the year kind of like 2021 or 2022, I kind of got back into reading again. I don't remember what spurred me to go to the library. Maybe it was one of these content creators like Always Black on Instagram or something. And I was like, let me go to the library, see what's there. I had just moved to that area also, so it might have just been like nostalgia for going to the library when you move, and like that kind of childhood memories coming back to me. But I ended up picking up Marlon James, Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I love that book. I popped off for that book. I'm very excited to finish that trilogy. I read Dracula that year, which like I think I want to make a whole video about Dracula eventually, because like I think truly it is like such a sad disservice to that novel that the most popular thing that came from Dracula is Dracula and Vampires, when Mina Harkness is like the coolest literary character ever, and like her actions and what Dracula the novel is about, like I believe is truly feminist text. It is about unpaid labor. It is about a woman's work being the most, like without Mina's work, the novel, it doesn't, like you cannot read it. Like you are reading a woman's work. Like it is so important, and like I think a lot of people don't understand Dracula. That's the TLDR, but I would love to make a longer video about that and about the adaptations and about Mina in general, because yeah, it's such a great story. I read some other stuff that year. I read a book about Yasuke. I read some other stuff, but then the year was 2022. At some point, I was kind of getting back into reading. I was writing a lot of reviews. If you go look at my Goodreads, there's like some insane, like, why did I write like a 12-paragraph review for this book, including a synopsis? Like it was like I was just doing too much. But then The Moonstone, I started reading in 2022, and then it kind of carried me into 2023, and this book destroyed my reading year in 2023. So as you can see, I still have not finished this book yet, and I really do enjoy this book. It is like a classical with very humanitarian themes in the same vein as Dracula is like feminist. This has a lot to say about disability. It has a lot to say about race. It has a lot to say about feminism as well, I think. But I have not gotten to the end yet, so like I don't. And the thing is, like I'm in the thick of the conflict. Like the most interesting things that like I have been waiting for the book to resolve are happening in where I'm reading right now. But this book is just like it destroyed my reading year in 2023. There's a part of this book where in the foreword they talk about it. The author was not writing this section, like his assistant was writing this section, and I think you can really tell. And they're writing about this character, Mrs. Clack, and she's like this like overly Catholic, like very preachy, but like doesn't follow her own, like she's a very obnoxious character and she's very funny to read, but it also just has like nothing to do with the plot, and like you can tell like that he was not writing it, and like the pacing gets weird, and like yeah, it was just a lot. It really destroyed my reading year 2023. I am gonna finish the book eventually. I'm thinking maybe I'll try to finish it in like March this year or something. But yeah, so 2023 I had a terrible reading year, and then 2024 I really wanted to catch back up. So in February is when I really started to read again, because I was still just like in Moonstone paralysis in January. I was like, I can't read if I'm not going to read the Moonstone. I don't want to read the Moonstone right now. And it was just like this whole thing that I was battling until I was eventually like, let me just like, I miss reading. Let me just read something. It does not have to be the Moonstone. So I read in February, the first book I read, I know what it is. It's No Woman, No Cry, the Rita Marley autobiography. Me and my mom were getting ready to go see the Bob Marley movie autobiography, biopic, whatever you want to call it. And I just I don't know a lot about Bob Marley. You know, I enjoy Bob Marley music. It's in a lot of my playlists. Like I listened to it a lot growing up in different settings. It always comes on. You know, it's very universal music. I don't think there's anyone on the planet who genuinely can say they dislike Bob Marley. Like there must be something wrong with you. Like truly, there must be something wrong with you. But like this novel was really good, and I'm glad that I read it, this autobiography, especially in context of like the way the movie does not shine a lot of light on Rita or iTree or even the Wailers in general. And I think the book like really gave me a good idea of like what, and the movie takes place in a different kind of time period. The book, you know, starts at like when they meet as teenagers and goes all the way to the end of his life, right? And so I think the movie like having a smaller period of time, but even within that, there's a lot of conflicts that it doesn't really touch on, and I just think I got a lot about their relationship and Bob, and especially Rita, and like learning about her music and learning about iTree and being able to go and listen to experience those as well, and not just like be in the isolated this is something I'm gonna talk about later when I talk about Malcolm X and another book. But like just with black figures in general, like we very much get commodified and get put into a book when into a box. Black people get put into a box when they are known for something, when they are successful doing something, when they have a message, whatever it is, right? And I think like like it's just reggae music in general as a whole, like is this super vast experience of music, and like Bob Marley definitely like gets put in this box as like all of, like I think reggae gets put in this box with Bob Marley almost, and there's so much more to experience there, even just within what Bob Marley's music is and who he worked with in creating his music and his history. So No Woman, No Cry, I think I gave it 4 stars. Let me look at my actual things. And also I need to stop talking about the books this much, because this was a problem with the last videos, that I talked about each book way too much, and like that was not in my top 5. I will let you know when we get to stuff that is in my top 5, and I just talked about it too much, and I don't want to have a bunch of cuts in this video, so I need to talk about the books less. What else did I read early in the year? Early in the year, I read Ta-Nehisi Coates. I probably said that name wrong. Everyone says it different. Between the World and Me. One of his first novels, one of the most popular novels. I don't know like where in the timeline it is, actually. It might not be one of his first, but it's definitely one of the most popular. I believe it's a letter to his son also, which is like as a black man, like it was, as a young black man in my 20s, it was a nice experience to be able to like read something that felt like directed at me and like very personal for me in a way. But yeah, just like a really good piece of writing. That was the other thing. A lot of the stuff I read in March and February around that time was stuff for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles video. If you didn't see that, you should go see that. I'm Still Here, Black Dignity and a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown. Very great book, especially if you are not a person of color. I think you definitely need to read that. If you are a person of color, I do think there are still things that you can get from that, especially like as a person of color who went to a PWI. I think there was a lot there for me. But it is definitely directed, it's like specifically at like white Catholic Christian people, and like the way you operate in those environments. And like I think if you fall in that demographic, definitely read that book. When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir by Patrice Kwan Coolers. Both of these books I read from the library, which is why I don't have physical copies of them. This was a really good book for me to read also. This is another one that I think is kind of more directed at white people, but as a person of color, I still got a lot from it, and I think you can as well as a person of color, as a black person, right? It's about the Black Lives Matter movement, and again, that's kind of the other thing I wanted to talk about is, like, that movement I think very much gets put into this box of, like, 2020 George Floyd, like, this is what this is what it was about, but there's so much more. Like, that movement has been happening since the early 2010s, and, like, there are a lot of different multifaceted aspects of it that I was able to learn about and engage with through this writing. So definitely I would recommend that. Another book that I read early in the year, I'm just gonna keep going down the list. There were some good segues I had last time, and if I catch on them, we'll catch on them. But another book I read early in the year that is kind of about some of these themes is N.K. Jemison's Far Sector. We're going to talk a little bit about trade comics in this section. We're going to talk about single issues in the next section of the video. But basically, so this is the full trade. So this is all like 12 issues or whatever in one run. And they also just did a reprinting of this recently in like a smaller format, kind of similar to a manga. It's very cute. If you do not read comics, N.K. Jemisin is like a novel author. Like, she is like an awarded author in science fiction and fantasy. I think like you should read this book, like, especially if you like N.K. Jemisin, if you like fantasy, if you like science fiction, if you're a black person, a person of color, if you're interested. So I do urban studies. I study the study of the city. There's a lot about the environment that I think is a very powerful character in this, the different races and the way they interplay. The thing that also I really liked about this book is how, like, it's very modern but also timeless in a sense. So like, a lot of what this book is about, and a lot of even like the slang and like the character designs and all these things are like based in our era. Like, there's a little AO3 joke in there at one point. There's a character that looks like Kai from Guilty Gear, like, on a shelf. Like, there's a lot of stuff that is very now in this book, but it definitely feels very timeless in like the way that the things that this book is talking about. Like, I think in 30 years people will still be able to relate to this. I feel like if you took this book back in time to someone that was reading comics in the 70s, like, they would still be able, they might be like confused about the digital art, but like they would be able to read this and like relate to the characters and relate to the events in like a very powerful way. Still, it feels timeless to me in that way, in a way that I really valued. This was in my top 5, so this is why I'm talking about it a little bit more. If you have never, this book is not from last year. If you've never read this comic book, like I said, they did do a reprint of it last year. I would definitely pick that up, especially. I hope N.K. Jemisin writes more of this character. This character did have like a little story in the what do you call it, Black History Month issue for DC this year, but we have not seen her. She's going to show up again in the Absolute run of Green Lantern, so I'm curious. I know it's not N.K. Jemisin writing the character anymore, but I'm just, this is a story, like I said, it is about a city and about multiple races and about classism and about emotions and about like so much of like our current landscape and about the internet, and like it's tapping on so many things, and for me it really hit on all of them. It's one of those books that like it had a lot going on, but it really nailed tying it all together, and definitely in my top 5. We are gonna have to do a quick cut because I have to reset the camera. Okay, I just had to reset the camera. There's some other stuff on here. Do I have Outer Darkness? I didn't talk about this last time. I guess I read this year. This was fine. I thought the world building in this was really interesting. Like, I wanted to know more about, so this is like all religions are real or not real. And like, so like there's people like doing religion through math, and like there's like sorcerers and there's priests. Like, it's a very interesting world. This character is like very unlikable. His wife died. He sacrificed his wife or something. He's upset about it. Like I said, the characters really did not do it for me. This guy is obviously a traitor because he looks evil. The world built. Oh, see, that's the timer that I set so I could make sure that we didn't go over, and I'm about to make it go again. Okay. The world building was really good. I did not love this that much. What else did we read this year? I don't need to talk about them that long if I didn't like them. Bolero. So this was another one in my top 5 for sure. I got this in single issue instead of trade. But since it was in my top 5, I want to talk about it now and from 2024. Some of this stuff is published in 2024, but we're going to be reading it this year, in this month. But yeah, so Bolero is, I think, a really good story about, and I think that Wyatt Kennedy, so I'm reading his current book, Nights, as well. I have to catch up on that. Ooh, I just pulled my cord in a bad way. But what I really enjoy about this book is, so it's about this character who is like struggling with relationships and maintaining relationships and having vulnerability, and like this character that's just like very pathetic and very pitiable, and like I think it's very hard to write a character like that you don't just hate, like a character that you can feel like you relate to and like have empathy for, and like this character is going through it. Like, she truly like she is struggling with like loving herself and like being able to be in these relationships with people. So she's like jumping from world to world, from reality to like experience all these different things, and she's just going through a lot. And I think that book really spoke to me. Like I said, I was very impressed with its ability to create a character like that was not obnoxious, that was not just like insufferable. Like I truly think that like she's able to take you through her journey, and like by the end, you know, like she's able to ground herself and like be able to like be present in these different relationships and like find her place. It's a very cathartic story. There's a lot going on in that story that I think is like, it really just touched me. And when I find myself like I'm feeling in those low moments, like I feel like I want to run away from everything, like I want to abandon everything, I really do like think back to the story and these characters and what they go through, and like I use that to reflect on my life. And I think that's super powerful, and that's why it ended up in my top 5. Another book that was not in my top 5 that like here's a good transition, right? A character that is totally the opposite of her, that is just insufferable and like obnoxious, and I did not like. The Z Word I read this year. It's a library one, so I don't have a copy of it. I have not read a lot of, I don't think I've ever read a queer novel. Like I don't engage with a lot of like super queer media. I don't know if I've read like an explicitly queer TV show or movie. Not there's a lot of that content at like a professional level. Like I still think that's a super new thing. I heard a lot of good things about As the TV Glow that came out this year, but I have not watched it. But like media like that, you know, was not coming out 20 years ago, you know? So, I read The Z Word. I saw it on the new fiction shelf in my library when I was looking around. It was a short book. It was like 200 pages. It was right after I had read something very long. So I was like, let me pick this up. I can get through it very quickly. It'll be an exposure to this queer author. Like maybe I can find something interesting here for me here. But like it's really just, so the main character Wendy, I don't know why I can remember Wendy's name but not her name, and that's driving me crazy. The main character Wendy is just like this insufferable, like super horny, like super self-centered, like super self-pitying, like just like I do not like this character at all. The other character that she's in a relationship with also seems to be a total mess, and like when that character dies, the character dies at the end of the novel, like totally just like do not care. The zombie apocalypse itself, like the scale of it is like very unclear, because like at the end of the novel there are still zombies around, but also somehow the company that caused the apocalypse was able to create a complete cover-up, so nobody outside of the state, like city that they're in, knows that zombies are happening. Like it is just like it was not good. I do think, to give the author some credit, I do think she had a talent for, I think her name's Lindsay King Miller, I think it was. She had a talent for writing these like action scenes and like these intense like disaster scenes, right? Like as a piece of disaster media, I think it did an okay job. Like I do think she was able to create tension like in these moments that like compelled me to keep reading. But I just hated all of the characters. Some of the characters that I wanted to like Bo was this like cool older woman. She was butch. That's how the book described her. I feel like I don't know if I can use these terms and like not be like, I don't know what I can say, what I can't say. But I like that character. She seemed interesting. She had a flask. She got her ribs broken, and she was just like taking swigs from her flask. But that's the most interesting thing I can tell you about that character. Like it was very surface level. So I did not like that book. I gave it 2 stars. A book that took a similar concept and did it way better, I think, was Crave. And this is part of what I think the Z Word was struggling with. I think the Z Word would have been done better as a comic or a graphic novel of some kind. And I think Maria Lovett's Crave takes a very similar idea where this app is causing people to fall in love and they kind of become zombified and enraged. And I think I learned more about these characters. I care more about what's going on with these characters. The plot has like a more scalable, sizable, like it makes sense to me, like what is going on. The conflicts and like the way that romance like is intertwined with the disaster aspects of the story, I think are more well done. And not that these two things just have to be compared. But I ended up picking this up because there's another like single issue Maria Lovelet story that we're going to talk about a little bit later. But no, I really enjoyed this. I think like it was short, it was sweet. Like I got a good feel for the campus. I got a good feel for even like the ancillary characters and the main characters, and just like all of the drama and the melodrama and the tension that this app that like allowed people to ask it about their most deepest desires, and then it would tell them what they had to do to attain that desire. Like there's a lot of melodrama that comes from that I think is very interesting. And I really just enjoyed this as like a disaster romance story where the Z Word did not like fulfill that craving in me. It was very nice to read this later in the year and then be like, oh hell yeah, I really like that. It was not in my top 5, but I did feel like I need to speak on it a little bit more, just because of that comparison there. I guess I read She-Hulk last year. This is out. Rainbow Rowell She-Hulk. I started to catch up on this. I didn't realize it was the end of her run, but she did do a good job ending the run. It got me kind of interested in her romance writing. I don't read a lot of romance, so I picked up Slow Dance by her. I read like the first 2 chapters. I didn't like DNF it or anything. I just like set it down. I will come back to it eventually. It felt like a fall read, and then fall kind of got past me, so I'm not sure when I'm going to come back to that one. We will see. Oh, I guess I read Wonder Girl and Birds of Prey this year also, since we're talking about trade comics. Both good trades that, like, if you... Birds of Prey, I would say if you like these characters, definitely pick this up. I think as someone who like played DC games and watched DC animation, like I grew up on the DC multimedia as a kid for sure. And so like I'm very familiar with these characters and I like a lot of these characters, and getting to see them interact was very fun. And the conflict being with the Amazons was also very interesting. Yeah, I really like this book. I think there was a cool conflict resolution. I like when comics are good about like melding action and some kind of emotional sentiment or like moral lesson, and I think this does a good job about like it's about accepting yourself in the end, and like learning to live with both parts of yourself, which I think a thing a lot of comics cover, but I really enjoyed this. And I enjoyed seeing those characters interact. Wonder Girl Homecoming, I think, is another comic that does a really great job about this. Like, this book is about colonialism, like, very directly. Like, it is about, like, white people, like, seeking to conquest other people in other societies. And like the women that stand up and fight against that. And like I think this character is amazing. I wish like she had more to do than like get punched in big events. And like that, like truly she was in the big DC event this year, and like they punched her and like she got punched into a wall, and that was it. That's all she did, and I'm so mad. Like this character is so cool. Please call Joelle Jones if you need more people to do things with this character, because she's cool and she did a great job with this first run. This is another, like, if you're not super into comics, but like you've seen this character, you think she looks cool, you know, you want to read something that is like, I read a lot of female heroes, especially because I think a lot of times they're done better than male heroes, and their multifacetedness. And again, like I think the story does a good job at melding the action point with like this story about colonialism and abuse, and about like where do you belong as a person of color, you know, and like how do you fit in, and like it just plays on a lot of themes that I really like, you know. Yeah, I like that book. I think it was good. Let me look at this Goodreads to see what else we're missing. So another in my top 5 that I know is not going to show up on Goodreads here, but is behind me, is Dawn Runner. So actually, I don't know if I actually did put this in my top 5. I think it's just one of my favorite comics, but I don't think this is in my top 5 for this year, because it's Bolero. We talked about Far Sector, The Bluest Eye, The City We Became, and Wretched of Earth. So yeah, this actually is not in my top 5. But this is a really good comic, and I don't know what else I would talk about it. But it's about mechs, it's about environmentalism, it's about motherhood, it's about war, it's about memory. I think Rom V hits a lot. I think, again, this is a great one where, like, at the end when, like, they merge and this mech becomes, like, this crazy monster. And, like, it's very cool. Like, everything that's going on here is very cool. The world building is very cool. The actual setting itself in South America is very cool. The mechs, the characters, like, I'm compelled to learn more about this mech driver and her relationship with her father that runs this, like, sports company, and her relationship with her daughter who is sick. Like, it is all very intense. The character that she mind melds with, like, there's a lot going on there. I think this is a great comic, a great like indie comic as well. If you don't read a lot of indie comics, you mostly read like Marvel and DC, like take a chance on this. Like, this thing is awesome, especially if you like mech. Like, I'm not even a big mech person. Like, I'm not like a Evangelion, like what's the other one, Gundam. Like, I'm not one of those people, but this really hit for me. Let's go ahead and talk about another one in my top 5, even though that wasn't in my top 5. That's like number 6. We'll call that number 6. The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin was definitely in my top 5. This is just a phenomenal novel. As a piece of character writing also, like, I think, and so I also read N.K. Jemisin's like collection of short stories this year, and that first short story, and there is like the one that is the first chapter of this book, and just getting to know all the different boroughs and getting to know all the different characters through the characters, and getting to like, I think this book does a really good job at like giving us the characters' perspective without, and like allowing us to learn about the world and allowing us to learn about the characters while still having them be very new and fresh to each other. And it's not frustrating. It's not like I'm waiting for them to catch on. It's like it makes sense how they're interacting with each other and the pace that they're learning at. And I think the way that it reveals information to you about what's going on also. Yeah, just like I also, like I said, I do urban studies, so just the way it was about the city and the people of the city and the built environment of the city, and like all these things that like are like very directly related to urban studies were present in this novel. And I'm really excited to read the sequel. There's a book club that I'm going to be taking a part in, that they're reading the first book next month, so I think I'm going to just like read the sequel and then show up. But no, I think all, like, especially all the characters, all of the boroughs, I think are such defined characters. Like all of them I love. Even Manny, who is like this main character who has like amnesia, which can be like kind of an overdone trope. Like I think like he has wants, like he has a history that is alluded to, and like you learn things about like who he is still, even though he is kind of this blank slate character. I think this was super well done. I think a lot about how this could be like a great open world video game. I think that's like a fashionable Crow video I would love to watch, is like her, because she often talks about video games and books and like how they can interact. But like I think this would be like an incredible open world game. I know NK Gems is a person who plays games, like she has a Twitch channel, and I'm just like, yeah, that would be such a good open world game. Let's talk about, I gotta go quick. Let's talk about The Bluest Eye, since I did mention The Bluest Eye as one of my top 5 also. A very difficult novel, I think, to read, but also just like in so many ways, like an incredible multifaceted novel. Like just read it, like trigger warning, like there is sexual assault in The Bluest Eye, but like I do think, like I truly think everyone should read this book in like middle school. Like even though there is like this like violent dramatic act in this book that like maybe everyone is not ready to read about, and like I totally want to respect people's like triggers and all that, like that's not what I'm saying, but like I think The Bluest Eye is a book like everyone should read when they're like 12 years old. Like genuinely, like it baffles me that I didn't. It is so poignant, it is so the way that and as I talked about it earlier with another book we were talking about, but the way that the themes, like it hits on so many different themes, but it is all wrapped up and it is all delivered in this stellar package. I think the way that it uses perspective, and the way that the story is told from these young girls' perspective, and the book doesn't really have a twist, but it does, and I think the way that it uses perspective to like deliver that information is so powerful, and why I also think reading it at a young age is like something that a lot of people could benefit from. I also think it's really cool that this book has like such a profound, I don't know what you call it. I keep calling it textual horror. That's not what it's called, but it's like the House of Leaves things. Like if you guys don't know about this, it's like a thing that some books do where the text formats differently, and that creates like a horrifying element to the storytelling. So like the Book of Leaves or House of Leaves is this very popular book that like this character's like wandering through this like elaborate maze, and like the book gets harder to read as things get harder to comprehend for him in this place. But The Bluest Eye does this with its chapter headings in the poem that Toni Morrison uses. And it truly, like, it gives me chills just, like, thinking about the way that this poem is formatted and the way, like, it gets compressed and in all caps, and, like, the different chunks that she takes out of the poem to force you to read and, like, repeat. And it is truly horrifying. And, like, I hate that she doesn't get credit for, like, that masterful work. Like, people always talk about House of Leaves, and, like, I have never heard anyone talk about The Bluest Eye and the way that it does that, like, formatting horror. But it's very powerful. It's very evocative. I think everyone should read The Bluest Eye. If you haven't read The Bluest Eye, please read The Bluest Eye. Similar to The Bluest Eye, I read River Solomon this year, her new book, Model Home. It was really good. It was not in my top 5. I don't want to speak on it too long because we're getting, we got to get snappy. But I really liked Model Home. I gave it away to a friend to read, which is why I don't have it. So spoilers, there is a twist in that book, and I do think, like, I don't know if I just caught the twist at a good time or if it was really well paced, but I think it's something that you can catch. Like, I caught it in the middle of the book. I was like, oh, I think I know where this is going. It was very satisfying when it got there. And I do think, like, it was satisfying also. I think sometimes I have, like, difficulty with River Solomon characters. Like, I think she does a great character writing. Like, I love her writing as, like, the way she writes characters, internal monologues, I think is, like, something I connect to so powerfully. But sometimes the way that her characters can be defined by, like, sexual trauma is, like, a little difficult for me to grapple with. And I think there was, like, a strong resolution and, like the story is about that in a strong way that, like, I found very satisfying. And I also think the thrilling elements, like the most horrifying thing that happens in this book happens, like, off page, and it's, like, very intense, and, like, the way that it builds, like, tension and thrill in you to, like, be like, okay, like, I need you guys to get back to this thing that is very pressing right now. Like, it's very good book. Definitely recommend that, especially if you like River Solomon, if you like thrillers. Like, I think she did a great job. I think they did a great job. Other stuff I read this year, A Nearby Country Called Love. I don't think that did as good of a job as wrapping up all its themes. I didn't know this was actually, like, a queer novel, but it definitely had a lot of queer themes and queer characters, and it took place in Iran, so that was very interesting as well. But I just felt like, so it was about the cycle of violence, and I think, like, cycles in a big way was part of why, like, a lot of, like, I didn't feel like resolution, and like I feel like the themes didn't all hit in the way that they could. like disjunctness and like cycles and all that is part of the book. I do think there were like super intense moments in the book. There's this moment where this dude like talks to a foreman about this thing that he wants to do, and then the foreman like takes this revenge for him in this act of like revenge and violence and cycles, and like there are very powerful moments in the book that stuck with me. And there are characters that I really enjoyed, that I liked their relationship. Like a lot of the romance in this book I think was well done actually. Like I wasn't expecting it to be so cute, but like the characters, especially because the main character does not like have a romance, and there's a very problematic romance that's like front and center, but the cute romances that are cute, like I think are very well done. Overall I give like 3 stars though. Everything I Get From You, I gave 2 stars, which I feel kind of bad about. Like, I feel like it was a 2.5 stars. This was a nonfiction about fandom, and specifically about One Direction fandom. But I feel like it just didn't pay off on it. And so my sister was a big One Direction fan. Like, I, talked to girls in middle school that were like super into One Direction. Like, I was in osmosis with all of that. I was on the internet at the time. There were even One Direction songs like I still know like the lyrics to that I enjoyed, right? We played What Makes You Beautiful in band, like my 8th grade year, like as like our big band song for the 8th graders to play. Like it was very funny. But I feel like this book did not deliver on its thesis, and maybe like I have to go back and reread the thesis, and maybe like that was part of my expectation being misset. But it really felt like this book was more about the author's personal relationship with One Direction and One Direction fandom, and the thesis really felt like it was going to present a story about how One Direction fandom and fandom in general shapes the internet and different internet communities. And while there were aspects of that story, like she talked about Black Twitter for like half a paragraph, like she talked about Lord of the Rings for like a sentence. Like there were things that I feel like were very integral to this topic of internet fandom and how it shapes the internet that were just not there. And so that's why I kind of gave it a low score, because I was expecting this like more nuanced research piece, and it really felt personal, and that was fine, but it's just really like it didn't meet what I was looking for, which was unfortunate. I read Things Fall Apart, the first of the African trilogy this year. Very sad novel. If you've never read an African author, like I think it's a really great first African author to read. Like it's a very popular novel. I was taking African art history at the time, and I live very close to the Detroit Institute of Art, so I can go see a lot of the African art pieces and cultural pieces that exist in that space. And so just like being able to put all these images together while I was reading that novel was very powerful and very enjoyable for me. Especially, like if you haven't read an African author, like I think it does a great job, especially as a Black person, like teaching you about different African communities and like, it is about colonialism also. And it's a very, very sad novel. Definitely recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah. And we're getting out of this section. I might have to reset the camera one more time, which is too many times. I didn't want to have to do this. Because I would like to be done and talk about, I have like 40 seconds. So my number 1 book of the year was The Wretched of the Earth, which I did also talk about in my most recent video, the Final Fantasy video I put out. I did use this as like reference material for this. But yeah, no, Francis Fanon popped off. This was my number 1 book of the year. Everyone should read this. So the other books were Bluest Eye, Bolero, Far Sector, 2 comics made it in there, and the City We Became. And that's going to be my top 5. And we're going to talk about single issue comics after I catch up on some of these. I'm going to go read some of these single issue comics, catch up on what I need to catch up on, and then we'll come back, we'll talk about those, and then we'll do our little January what I read. And hopefully this video is not way too long. Hello, you guys. Welcome back. I hope I am enough in the frame and kind of in focus. We'll see. I'm going to fix it in a second because I'm going to show you guys some other stuff in here. But the point is, welcome back to the second part. Child, it's been so long since I recorded the first part of this video. I know I said there's going to be 3 parts. This is still kind of like a 2-part thing. I'm going to talk about some comics, like I said, and then we're going to talk about what I've read in January, slash I'm finishing, slash I'm getting ready to start in February. I have like a couple days left of January, so I'm hoping to at least finish 2 of the books that I'm reading and like get into one that I plan to read this month, but it's going to end up being like a January, February thing. But yeah, so my goal basically was to read. I'm in 2 book clubs, read the 2 books for the 2 book clubs, and then read 2 books for myself. And so we'll talk about those. And I also want to show you some books I've hauled. I know we talked a little bit about, we didn't really talk about that much about my hauls in the last part. We just talked about like my top 5 and just kind of what I read last year. So I want to talk a little bit about what I've hauled, especially in the, because like I took some footage. I'm sure we'll use that in the transition. I took some footage at the Black-owned bookstore and at the laundromat. But yeah, I love going in there, and it's so hard for me to not buy something when I go in there. They have so much good nonfiction, and so much that is like prevalent to the things that I am like very deeply interested in. So, but yeah, let's talk about some of the comics that I read last year, as well as some of the stuff that I caught up on early this month. That's kind of why I am also forgiving myself for not like hitting my goal with the 2 and 2 books, because I did catch up on like let me see. I think it's like this. I think this is about the size of the stack. There's a couple extra in here. But yeah, I caught up on like this many comics this month. And I still have like a stack about the same size, a little bit thicker, that I want to get into, like New Gods by Ram V. Like we talked about Dawn Runner a little bit, I'm pretty sure, in the last part of the video, because that was one of my favorite comics last year. And I do I'm excited for his New Gods run. I have the first 2 issues. I just have not gotten to read them yet. Jeff Lemire's Minor Arcana. I'm going to show you some of these actually over there in a second. Let's talk about some of the stuff I actually did finish reading last year. Some of the stuff I'm a little bit caught up on. So like it took me forever to catch up on this Absolute Power event. I also read the Blood Hunt event for Marvel. So like I kind of read 2 events last year, and it was an interesting experience because I haven't really read events like that before. And I think they did different things. Hang on, I want to check and make sure this is. Okay, I don't know why I was paranoid about that. But they definitely did different things. And I think I like the DC event a little bit more. I think but like also it was about the books I read. But really the thing is, I do think the DC event was done well. Like I do like DC's effort in like redefining, and I think it's also going to be a big push in like their cinematic thing, is like showing superheroes saving people, and that's a big thing I really liked with the Titans. Did I not put Titans up here? But I did read Tom Taylor's Titans run, and I really loved how so much about that was about the Titans saving people and interacting with nature and interacting with communities, and like that aspect of like what being a superhero is for them. I do have Tom Taylor's, he's doing Detective Comics now, which is really exciting. I didn't. Man, why does my audio... Okay, hopefully it doesn't... I don't know, hopefully all my audio is fine, because I'm going to be really mad if I have to record this. The point is, Tom Taylor's Titans, I think Task Force or Absolute Power, the event, did a really good job with like the Task Force, the fail-safe copies, like the gaining the attributes of the superheroes and that being their weaknesses, like that superheroes are compassionate. And I think there's a great little subplot thing with this Hero Airwave. Why I wasn't even like, I know some of these niche heroes, but I didn't even know that guy. And Aquaman has a really nice speech with him at one point. Mr. Terrific shows up and does some cool shit. Like it was a good little event. I enjoyed it. Nightwing stepped up. We always love a good Dick Grayson. That's our man's, right? That's the boy. Truly, I think Dick Grayson is like Batman sucks without Nightwing, right? Like I think Nightwing is the best hero, and I think even like a couple years ago he like saved the whole multiverse or something. So we love Nightwing. That's the boy. Go watch M Enterprises. He makes some funny videos about just DC characters in general, but he made a couple very funny Nightwing videos.
Usagi Yojimbo, I read that little, that was like a fine series. Lilith was very interesting. I think there's more issues of that coming out soon this month, so I'm really curious about issue 2 and 3 and like what's going on with that character. Vampirella Dark Reflections, a similar kind of character going on there. And I thought that was an interesting series. I watched an interview that Casually Comics did with the writer, and I think the illustrator was on there as well. But I think it was playing with good themes of like family trauma and motherhood and like freedom and like responsibility to community. I think there was a lot going on there. 4 or 5 issue little mini. I think it did a pretty good job. The Cult of the Lamb series was cute. I read that sporadically in a way that it didn't stick with me super well. That was a personal thing, but I do think it was really cute. Godzilla Skate or Die was also very fun. There's some cool moments, some very cool art moments too. Like there's a panel where they're like all skating and the like streak lines, the skate lines from their action lines or whatever are shaped like the different Godzilla monsters. It's very cool. Doing a poor job explaining it. One thing I also wanted to start this section with was just like saying I wanted to kind of, even if you don't read comics, I do think it is a good idea to watch the section because I do want to talk about some other different comics that I think are good, like starter intro comics, even if you're not really into superheroes, because I do read some superhero stuff. I like the X-Men. But I also read a lot of indie stuff, and I read a lot of like little minis and things that I think that like even if you're not into superheroes or if there's just a superhero you like, then like this is a good jumping on point. So we talked a little about Bolero when I was talking about my top 5 because that's in my top 5, and we talked a little bit about Dawn Runner also, and I think those are 2 great like if you don't read a lot of comics, and also Far Sector obviously made it into my top 5 as well. My favorite comic of all time. I would recommend everyone read Far Sector. I think it's a phenomenal book. But yeah, so before we get to the indies, because we have been talking about Marvel stuff, and I want to move the camera to show you like my other shelf that has a bunch of the indies on it. A lot of the other stuff that I was catching up on earlier this month, besides some of the horror books that I was reading, was I was catching up a lot on the Ultimate Universe stuff. Ultimate Wolverine 1 dropped. I'm also reading some of the Absolute Universe stuff from DC. I do think the Ultimate Universe, like I'm reading Ultimate X-Men, which I am enjoying a lot. Like I love Peach Momoko's art style. I don't think the pacing is too slow. Like I do think, like it's a fun read. I think if you're familiar with X-Men characters, it's fun. I think the melodrama of it is also very interesting. All the character relationships and the way we're learning about their environment is very interesting, but I don't think it fits super well into the overall picture of like what the Ultimates are painting. And I like the Ultimates book. I think like, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it because I think it is being very bold about its values and about what it stands for, and I appreciate that, but I also feel like the heavy-handedness is sometimes a bit exhausting and maybe a bit belabored. But I do think overall it's a good book. I like these versions of the characters. The Ultimate Hawkeye is super cool. I love that character. Yeah, just generally, like, I think they're doing interesting things, like, even one of the early issues with Hank and Janet, like, Hank learning about all of the things that he's done in the main universe, like, how he's been, like, such a shitty person and an abusive husband and all these things. Like, it's very interesting. A lot of the ideas that the Ultimate Universe is playing with, but it's interesting, too, also because, so, catching up on it recently, the Guardians of the Galaxy kind of got introduced, and it feels like they're kind of fast-tracking a lot of the plot suddenly, so I'm curious if the books aren't selling, like, but they have so many more, like, Wolverine just started, and I'm sure there are more characters they're going to introduce with Ultimate lines, so I'm kind of curious because whereas the Absolute Universe really feels like it's setting up for, like, a long-term thing here, where they really want to put out a lot of different books and, like, will build to an event with the universes colliding probably in a few years. Something about this Ultimate Universe, like the X-Men element doesn't feel super connected to the other stuff that's going on. Even reading the Wolverine issue, like it gave me a better understanding of how like the corporate identity of America in Ultimates isn't just that, you know, it's the whole world is corporations instead of countries, and like that's an interesting storytelling aspect, but I don't think the world building is necessarily there. Maybe it's because I'm not reading Ultimate Spider-Man. I have Ultimate Black Panther in the trade, I just have not read that yet. That's something I need to catch up on. So maybe it's just because I'm missing a couple of those books, but I think the world building, like I think there's something really interesting there, especially reading Parable of the Sower, which we're going to get into. That's one of the books I'm reading right now. Like it's an idea that a lot of different dystopian and future kind of speculative media can play with, and I think it's just like the world building is just not there yet for me. So I'm curious, but I do like the stories. Like I really like Ultimate X-Men and all the characters and everything. Let's pivot a little bit. Well, there's some more Marvel stuff on the shelf, but basically I'm going to turn this camera around real quick, and hopefully y'all don't see too much of my room here. And I'm going to have to reset the focus, so we are going to have to do a cut in a second. But yeah, so Darkstalkers had a cool comic out, a Jetta comic, which actually is also right there. But that came out, and then this is the follow-up. I have not read that yet because I just keep it up there, and it looks so nice up there, and I don't want to take it down. Like, why would I take that down? It looks so good. Also, that magazine is a very cool photography magazine, curated of Detroit photographers. Very cool. Just very cool piece of art and a magazine to have, and I'm very excited to see what they continue to produce. I do believe it's like available to order online no matter where you live now, so like if it's something you're interested in, Detroit photographers, you know, the Detroit art scene, if you're not here, it's so vibrant, it's so diverse, there's so much stuff going on, there's so many galleries, like you could go to a different gallery every day, like probably for the whole year in Detroit. It's incredible. But yeah, so some of the other indies I've been reading, like I mentioned, Minor Arcana by Jeff Lemire, I'm not caught up on. I lost my issue 1. I don't know where my issue 1 is, so I'm going to have to go get another issue 1 so I can remember what happened and then catch up on that. Witchblade, I've really been enjoying. I think I'm only at like issue 3 or 4. Honestly, I have a lot of Witchblade to catch up on, which I kind of wanted to do before I recorded this because I was having mixed feelings in the last issue I read. And Witchblade is kind of one of those series where it can evoke a lot. Like, I think the character is cool. I think she's super cool and she can stand for a lot of cool things, but like it's all about like interpretation and how she's written and like the context. But so far it was playing with a lot of really interesting ideas about the female body and control and power and sexuality and all these different ideas, as well as just like law enforcement and like human trafficking. Like there's a lot of very poignant connected tissue in that series, so I really do want to catch up on that, because I like Sarah as a character also so far. Like I think she's interesting. Like I think she's very interrogative. Like I think like she has like a Batman-esque nature to her where like she is very observant and it helps clue the reader into the world in a very helpful way. But yeah, that's like a great indie. If you're familiar with the character, I believe she had like a movie or TV show. So like very popular character, very popular design, written by a woman. So like great book to read if you are trying to get into like indies, along with like Dawn Runner, Into the Unbeing, Far Sector for sure. Like I said, I recommend. Another one I would definitely recommend is the Phoenix series you see on the end there. I want to show you guys some of the other variants I have, but I'm not going to go. Like, I could just easily go stand over here. I don't know why. I have my microphone moved. I have some very cool variants for this series, but it's a very, I really liked, so I'm not familiar with this writer. I would have to check on Instagram. I meant to, because I went and follow her. But she has a PhD. I believe it's in psychology, but I could be wrong. I need to get a variant for number 4 because I have the regular cover and I need a variant. So many good variants. But no, I really like that series. And Phoenix is a character that like I found interesting. You know, playing Marvel vs. Capcom also, like she's a fun character to me. She's a powerful character. Like she's super powerful, and I think that's interesting to play with and like what you can do with that. And so also this writer, Stephanie Phillips, just really has been able to like do a lot of interesting storytelling. Like there's a cool foil, a new character as part of the Black Order, if you remember from the MCU movies, like the evil Thanos henchman. And kind of this idea of like what it means to be a god, and like there's a lot about empathy and about responsibility, and these character foils I think are very interesting. It's a very intellectual story that she's telling. And it really has pulled me in. Sometimes it's a little bit comic plotty where like she meets up with Scott's dad for an issue and they like fight off with like ghost pirates on the moon or something. Like it's so silly, you know. But I do think like there is like a deep intellectual like character study also going on there that I really am enjoying. And I know the series just came back, so I am excited to see what's going on with it now that it's back. Storm is another really great series. If you haven't seen the interview that Comics is Dope did with the writer, I would definitely check that out. Especially, we're going to talk about one of the other books I read this month, and it really tied in with that as well. But just like a really great, it's awesome to see Storm have a solo series, but like he's doing a great job at like trying to encapsulate all these aspects of the character, where she's this incredibly powerful mutant. She is like a spiritual person. She is a queen. Like she has all these multifaceted aspects to her that are very interesting. So it's really cool to see him like pull from all these different aspects of what Storm is. Wonder Woman I'm super behind on. I like actually haven't read any of those. I'm not picking up Superman, or I might pick up Batman in trade. I might pick up Superman in trade also, but I'm probably gonna just like learn about those through osmosis from the internet, I feel like. But Wonder Woman I wanted to actually pick up for myself. Violet Flowers, I read the first issues of. That's so we talked about Crave. Crave is, I think, another really good comic if you're not super into comics. Like, it's super short. It's like an apocalypse-like narrative. Like, it's super easy to get into. And so I would definitely suggest that. And Violet Flower so far seems really cool. It's a vampire story. There's like a Cleopatra vampire. I only read the first issue. All 4 are out, so I really just got to catch up on that. That's my own ish, and I have all 4 right there. So I really just need to do that, and I'm looking forward to it because the art is. I like Maria Lovelet's art. Her writing was really good in Crave, like I said. Her character relationships were very powerful. So I'm curious to see kind of what she does with those aspects in this like vampire supernatural story. I skipped over Mystique, but I also skipped over The Moon is Following Us. I meant to. I have to catch up on that. I probably should have lowered this down a little bit sooner also. But I didn't catch up on that yet. So I really don't know a lot about what's going on. I picked that up because the artist, he was the artist on Harley Quinn back in 2021 when I was reading that series, and I just really love his art. It's so... it has so much movement to it, and it's so vibrant, and it's just so full of life. Like, I just love his art so much. So I'm really excited to catch up on that series as well. There's a couple other series I need to catch up on, indies that I were reading from last year. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. Let me see if I can find an issue in here. Yes. So this is an interesting series. It's kind of like an enemies to lovers thing that they have going on. And it's like in hell and in the afterlife, so there's all these different warriors from different eras, and I've only read like 2 or 3 issues of that. I got to catch up on that. That's all the way out also, and I just need to catch up on it. But I think that's probably a good indie. I can't vouch for how good the Enemies to Lovers is because I haven't caught up on it, but it's like 6 issues, like very simple concept. It seems like the authors are big fans of Star Wars, so like it's like a very digestible plot to come into. I'm also reading The Nice House by the Sea. The Nice House on the Lake, I read back in like 2022 or 2023, but definitely like one of my favorite comics of all time for sure. And so I need to catch up. I'm like 2 issues behind on the sequel series here and seeing everything that goes on. I would like to do a whole different video on The Nice House by the Lake. Where is my trade paperback? Yes. I have the trades of Volume 1 and Volume 2. Very much enjoy this series. Definitely, like I said, one of my favorite comics of all time. I would love to do a whole another video on those. But definitely a great series. If you're not super into comics, that's a great horror to read. Another horror I read last year was Into the Unbeing. That's another great horror to read. And Nice House on the Lake. It's a great horror. It's very cerebral. It's an apocalypse narrative, but our characters, it really reminds me of Glass Onion in a lot of ways. It's an apocalypse, but our characters are on this island that they were invited to by their rich friend, but their rich friend actually has a lot more going on than it first appears, is what I'll say. But it's a great horror series, very cerebral, just super interesting, a lot of great themes at play. And yeah, I really want to know where it's going because the way that it ended definitely had me feeling mixed feelings. And so I really do need to catch up on that sequel series. I'm out of breath. So those are a lot of the indies I would suggest. I'm reading so many X books. If you like X-Men, there are a million X books right now. I'm reading X-Men, Exceptional X-Men, which is the team led by Emma and Kitty. And there's some new X-Men on that team. And I'm also reading NYX, which is the Miss Marvel, Laura Kinney, Prodigy team. Like, they're super cool. I love NYX so far. If you haven't read NYX, the 3rd issue is like a really great issue also with, I forget what this character's name is, the Lizard Boy. I apologize for not remembering his name. It starts with a G. It's like a weird, but it was a very cool story about like, the Murlocs, the mutants that have like physical alterations to their appearance and like how they exist in society. Beyond that, I do need to turn this camera around, but like I know it's going to be out of focus and the framing is probably even going to be wrong, so I need to fix that, but it's about to time me out in a second, so I'm going to fix it anyway. I already mentioned the New Gods. Oh yeah, I was talking about X-Men comics. There's so many other X-Men comics also. Like, every female mutant has a solo series right now, and I'm like, if you love female mutants, which I don't know why you wouldn't, like we're here for it, right? You already saw I have Phoenix, Storm, Mystique. I had to pass on Magic, Psylocke, and there was another. Oh yeah, Wolverine. Laura Kinney has her own solo, just because like there's so many. Dazzler was getting her own solo not too long ago. I don't know if that's still going on. But yeah, just like every female mutant, if you love female mutants. I know there was a Scarlet Witch solo late last year. I don't know if that's still going on. Truly, like, we're eating. So, yes, I need to fix this focus. And then we're going to talk about the books that I read this month and what I'm going to be reading in February, and then the video's done. So, okay. I should switch my camera battery out because it's red, but I'm going to YOLO it. I should never. Ew, that's so cringe. Anyway, I'm also reading Miles Morales. I didn't mention that. That's another great. Like, like Storm, I think is another great. Storm and Phoenix. I think if there are superheroes that you're interested in, but you don't want to watch like a lot of big superhero fights, group team shenanigans, none of that. You just like want like interesting character studies. Phoenix, Storm are great. I think Miles Morales is a little bit more getting into superhero shenanigans if you're interested in trying to get into that world. I'm an arc behind, so I just read the arc where like he meets up with T'Challa and he gets the new suit. He's still a vampire, so like there's a lot going on. I think his relationship with Starlight though, Falcons or Vulture's, excuse me, that was awful. That's terrible. Vulture's granddaughter, I think they have a really cute relationship and it's very positive, and I love to see like positive representations of black love, especially in comics media. So yeah, no, like I just think that Miles Morales series, also some great art moments. They did like a JoJo's homage at the end of one of the issues in that arc. It was really good. Yeah, just a lot of cool stuff going on there. You know, Miles, a lot of people talk about Miles is super overpowered, and like he is, like he has lightning sword, he's a vampire now, he has a new like Black Panther level suit, like he has it going on. But I love to see that kid thrive, and like he's a very, like I do think he's written in an interesting way. Like I think he's fun. I think he does have like a lot of youthful energy to him. He's a little sassy, like he's a cool character. Like I said, I think his relationship with Starlight also is very cute and like helps pull you into, especially this like that arc that I was reading. If you start at like that arc where he's fighting Vulture, or even the arc after, like I think that's like probably a great spot because I think they have a good thing going on there with the characters. We're gonna get out of comics land now though, because I think that's pretty much all of the comics I wanted to talk about. Oh, I also read Birds of Prey. I think we talked about Wonder Girl also when I was talking about things I read last year, because those were trades. I'm pretty sure I talked about all the trades already. So I think we're good. I think we're good to move on to what I have been reading this month. And so for book club, I was reading Inciting Joy. This is a good, it's a very interesting memoir. So it's about what incites joy and what joy incites in the world. I'm just so scared about this battery. I'm going to check it like a million times and I should just switch the battery. One thing that's challenging for me about memoirs is I feel, and so here, let me grab this also. Because I also, at the end of last year, started reading the best essays of 2024, which I very much enjoy and am enjoying, but have not gone very far into. But I think it's something different, and not all these are memoirs. Obviously, it says essay, but so far, most of them that I have read have been memoir-esque in some way, or at least have elements of a memoir to them. And I think something that's challenging for me is like a memoir challenges you with its vulnerability, right? Like a memoir, someone writing a memoir is being so vulnerable in the information that they give you and the story they tell you, but it is also challenging in that if you are really going to imagine these scenarios and imagine these moments, especially with inciting joy, like I do not know what any basketball court Ross Gay has been on looks like, but I know basketball courts that I have been on, and I know people that I have seen and interacted with and been friends with in those environments. And so when he asks us to imagine those things about his life, really he's asking you to reflect on your own life. And I find great memoirs do that, but that's also like so emotionally challenging, I think. And so I'm very slow at reading memoirs. I can really only read like one short memoir a day before I'm just like totally like just like drained on that like emotional vulnerability and like reflection. Like I think it's a very like deep thing to read a well-written memoir. Like I think it's very challenging for me at least. So yeah, I do want to catch up on Best American Essays. Inciting Joy, I went to the book club meeting even though I have not finished it. I only have like 3, I believe, memoirs left to read, so I should definitely finish it before January is over. I still have a couple of days left. And this Best American Essays, once I finish Inciting Joy, I'm going to try to read like one essay every single day just so I can start getting through that as well. Because I think that's probably a good way to tackle that and just to get it off my list so it doesn't end up drowning, right? What else have I been reading this month? We mentioned it earlier. Oh, should I talk about my other book club book first, actually? Oh, I have too many books everywhere, and I moved all these comics. Okay. So whoa, that probably sounded really bad. So my other book club book is Book of Juju by Juju Bay. So she's like a podcaster, a Juju priestess, a spiritual person. I was unfamiliar with her work before reading this. Some of the people in the book club did like kind of listen to her podcast and know about her. But it was a really good book, actually. I think it struck a good balance. For me, I think this was a great balance of, and so I just took African art history recently, so it was also, and also living in Michigan, I can go in Detroit, I can go to the DIA and look at these spiritual African objects and like have such a deep connection that I have a privilege to, that I think really helped me with this book also. But I think it's a really great mix of research and information about traditional and diasporic African religion, personal experience that Juju has gone through, and explanations of practices that you do already that are spiritual, but have because of colonization, because of white supremacy, because of all these things, Catholicism even in some ways, because of these things that they have been, we don't always view them as spiritual, or we don't always acknowledge the juju that is that we're practicing, right? And so like I think it's a very interesting book for that. If you're a black person, like I said, even if you don't think you're spiritual, I think this book really challenges you to reflect on that and understand the ways that we are all spiritual as black people, especially. So like for me, I was very hesitant at being receptive to this book for a while, and I said this in the book club also, but then I was in the gym and Reincarnated from GNX came on, and I was like, oh, I very much am spiritual, and black people are spiritual, and I do believe in these things, even if it's not in a grandiose, if it's not in a, there's another word that I am, spectacle, even if it's not as spectacle, like I still do believe in these things. And so this is a great reflection on like how you are spiritual in your own life already, as a black person, and how that connects back to spiritual practices that we have experienced. I think it's a great tie-in for the Storm series. If you're gonna like pick up that Storm comic book, this is a great book to read along with it. And yeah, I do think like I didn't love everything about this book. I think there's a little bit of like an individualist undertone in some of the examples and some of the writing, but I do understand why that's there, because it definitely is like to garner like a more general audience in the book, right? Like it's not, the book's not trying to be super woke or super spiritual right off the bat. It's just trying to get black people to read the book. And so like I understand why like some examples about like getting money or getting a good job or getting your hair done or whatever, even if they seem a little goofy to me at times. But no, this was a really good book. I have not rated it, maybe 4 out of 5 stars. I do think maybe 3.75. I don't know. Like I think it was a really good book. Like I said, I really do think she balanced the different aspects well, because like I said, even when I didn't love an example or love a personal story, like there was like African research about African tradition that was there to accompany it, or a realization about something that I have already done. And there is like that memoir aspect where it does force you to reflect on your own life in that way. But that was a really good book. I really enjoyed reading that with the book club and talking with people, especially, and all of our different backgrounds, and all of our different ancestors and our shared ancestors. We talked about it like a couple days after Martin Luther King, so that was a really fun experience. If you're not in a book club, you should be in a book club. So the other book that I'm reading this month, we did already talk about it a little bit, is Parable of the Sower. This is a challenging read, you guys, just because it's so vivid. It's so like you can see, you don't have to look into the future to create. Oh yeah, you do not have to look far into the future to like see the landscape that is described by Octavia Butler and by Lauren. It's really just about like thinking about different places in America, in South America, in Asia, and Africa, like all these, like you, like it very much feels like these places that she is describing exist already, and that's why it can be very, where's the book? It can be very difficult, it can be very vivid, it can be very terrifying, but I do think like the underlying theme of this book is hope and community, and that can be something I struggle with sometimes, community. But I live in Midtown Detroit. I'm going to book clubs. Like there are a lot of ways I can get involved in and trying to. But I think this book really will challenge you to reflect on that for yourself. So I'm very like not super far into it. I'm almost at the end of 2025. And most of the book takes place in 2027, I believe. I think 2026 is also a really short chapter. But yeah, it's I think everyone should be reading this book right now. If you've never read it, even if you have read it, like it's probably a good refresher, because like this is a guide for current times in so many ways, and it connects with like everything that is not only happening, but in so many pieces of media. Like I was talking about, what series was I talking about earlier that I felt like had like shades of this, and I really truly have lost the plot. I don't remember. But yeah, I just think that like, even people that have not read this have been inspired by the story. Like that's how powerful this work is, and how transcendent its inspiration really is, because I think you can really see reflections of it in so much media. And like I said, even if you have read it, like I think it's a good time to read it again. It's a story of hope. It's a story of empathy. It's a story of community. And like as difficult and vivid and terrifying as it can be, like I think it's so important right now. I really don't want to say anything detailed because I'm not that far into it, but also just like it does the same thing that I think Dracula does. And also I think it's so well crafted because it's a combination of the things that like Inciting Joy does as a memoir and the thing that Dracula does as a piece of fiction, where Dracula ties you essentially into the plot by I just want to check this again. So yeah, like I ranted in the first part, like one of the reasons Dracula is like one of my favorite books of all time is because of the way Dracula establishes itself as lore, as narrative in our world through Mina's like collection of the resources. Like Dracula is not a fictional story written by Bram Stoker. It is a collection of documents and journals assembled by Mina Harker, and that is so fucking cool to me. Like that is something that like I think other media tries to do. I think games, especially like if you look at indie games, there's a lot of indie games like Undertale or what's the other one, Inscription, right, that really try to create a narrative about like these elements having real context and real parallels, but I think it's so much more difficult to do with a game. I think it's so easy to do with a book because we all write at some point, right? We all write and we can all understand the idea of writing down our thoughts, I think, even if obviously there are people who are literate, so not we all. But I think like expressing your thoughts through writing is like a very like human thing, or even expressing your thoughts through pictures and drawing, right? Like I think that's something we've been doing like since Neolithic eras, right? So I think there's something grounding in reading words that have been written that makes it feel so vivacious, like it feels so real, it feels so full of life, because like it's so relatable in that way. And I think because Parable of the Sower was written as journal entries, like it forces you to have that empathetic, memoiristic approach where I am imagining pieces of my world to create, and that's true of all books, but right. But I truly like have to take deep reflections of images in my own world to create the world that Octavia is painting for us. But I'm also a part of it because these journals, even if they're happening in the future, like they are written in a way that is grounded in journal writing. Like like I am reading a document that is transcendent of time, and it doesn't feel like disbelief. Like it doesn't feel like it's asking me to suspend anything, right? Like it just feels like, yes, Lauren will write these words even if I'm reading them to her. Like it just, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, I think probably going to end up being one of my favorite books of all time, especially just the way I'm already talking about how it uses literature as a medium to, that's what I think is so special about great literature, about great any media, is that it uses its medium as part of the delivery and the story and the empathy and all of that. Like, and yeah, Parable of the Sower definitely does that. So I'm hoping to finish that by the end of this month. Like I said, I'm not super far into it, but, and it can be difficult to read at times because it's so vivid, like I said, but I also think it's also very easy to read in large chunks at the same time. Last couple books I'm going to talk about, and then we're going to get out of here. The Containment, Detroit, The Supreme Court, and the Battle for Racial Justice in the North by Michelle Adams. So I'm going to a book talk about this weekend. So I wanted to read a little bit more of it in January, but it's going to end up being like a January-February read. So this is going to count as one of my personal books for January and February. I'm going to probably start it today, even though I'm not finished Parable of the Sower yet. I think I'm just going to start it and start to get moving on it so like I can read some of it before the book talk, because I'm very excited for that. But yeah, so like I study urban studies, so it's about zoning, it's about education, it's about racial justice. Like these are all things that are super important to me personally and to my education path right now. I'm taking classes like History of Detroit. I'm not necessarily specifically focused on education, but like I think it's such an important part of equity. And so yeah, like I'm just really curious to read this book, and I'm very excited to go to the book talk also. And this also, here's another little thing I ordered on Amazon, The Culture of Digital Fighting Games. There's a couple other articles. This is a nice little Routledge series in new media and cyber culture. There's a couple other of those I want to read also, but I'm thinking about making a video next month about diversity in the fighting game community, and there's a whole thesis there that I don't want to spoil, but we'll get there. So that's what I'm going to be reading for the rest of this month and kind of into next month. My other polls for next month, my other personal poll will be Hours by Philip B. Williams. I've been wanting to read this for a while. I bought it not too long ago at Source Bookseller, the Black-owned bookstore. And it's another big one, but I wanted to read a big Black book in February. So this and The Containment are going to be my personal books for February. And yeah, I'm very excited to get to this. I'm probably not going to get to it till the end of February, though, because for the book club, I will be reading The City The World We Make. So The City We Became is actually the book for the book club, and that's in a couple weeks. But I'm going to go ahead and read the sequel because I have read this last year. We kind of talked about it in the last section. So yeah, I'm going to be reading the sequel this month, and that's what I'm going to get started on as soon as I finish Parable of the Sower. So I'm really excited for that. And for my other book club, I will be reading Blood in My Eye by George Jackson. I did not get my copy yet, but they're ordering at Source Bookseller, so I will probably have it in a couple days here. Other than that, I do want to end the video pretty soon because it's been going on for a long time. I do want to show you a couple other hauls that I've gotten from Source Booksellers in the past couple days, just because like I be buying books, and like I need to stop. Tell My Horse. So they actually read this in the book, one of the book clubs I'm in before I joined it, but it seems like a really great accompaniment to Book of Juju. It's all about voodoo in Haiti and this author's experience. It's like a collection of journals, so I know it's going to be a difficult one for me to read. I don't know when I'm going to read it. I think it'd be a good follow-up to Book of Juju, like I said, but I already have my February books planned, so maybe March we'll get back to it. I don't know. We'll see. I do want to get to it sooner than later. The Rebels Clinic. This is written by a white man. I didn't know it was written by a white man, but I bought it when I bought it. But I love Frantz Fanon. You know I love Frantz Fanon. We talked about Frantz Fanon in the first part of this video. So I saw Frantz Fanon on the table, and I said, I'm going to buy this book today. I walked in there not intending to buy any books. I just saw Frantz Fanon on the table, and I said, I need this book. So I don't want to read that either. I was thinking about trying to read that, or maybe even have Malcolm X's autobiography. Or I guess it's a biography, not an auto. Oh, it is an autobiography. I got this also from Source Bookseller. I was thinking about reading this in February because it'd be a good read for February. But it's one of these tiny books that's very annoying to read. But I should read it. But I got very behind with my reading. So if I finish the Containment fast and I have time, this will get snuck into February. But I kind of doubt I will have time for that. There are so many other books on the shelf I could show you that I have gotten from Source Bookseller because I love going there. And I just like purchase something every time I go in there. I have a couple Tia Miles books. I hate this cover. Can we talk about how bad this cover is? Who did they hire to make this? This is such a bad cover. I could have done so much better. They just put 2 images and then this weird random shape with the text. The most boring text. This is interesting, I guess, kind of. Not really. Listen, this is a terrible cover. I could have done better, Tia Miles. There's another Tia Miles that I was reading for class, and another Tia Miles that I intend to get about Detroit. Just a very prolific historic author. If you're interested in Black history, definitely you should be reading Tia Miles. I also got this little short story collection about Dearborn. I lived in Dearborn for a little bit, so I'm kind of curious to see what that's about. This is also like a collection of short stories. So like these are books I probably will start reading after I finish Inciting Joy and the essay collection, to just like read one of these a day. This is about climate change and yeah, you can read it. Yeah. So that's a lot of the hauls I got in. There's some other stuff. I had this really cool book about birds somewhere. I don't know where that went. It's probably under this stack of shit that I'm not gonna move. I got this book about corn, which seems really cool. It's an essay, really. It's like someone's graduate essay or something. I love books like that. But yeah, I get so much stuff from Source all the time because it's such a good spot. If you're in Detroit, you should definitely go there. But yeah, that's my best books of 2024 and what I read in 2024, and the comics that I read in 2024, and some of the comics that I read this month and I'm catching up on, and some of the books that I will be reading in February. So I don't know when the next time I will do a book. I don't know when the next time I will do a book vlog will be. So if you want to see or hear the rest of my thoughts on Parable of the Sower, I don't know. Leave a comment maybe, and then I'll respond to your comment maybe not. We'll see. But yeah, so that's what I've been reading. That's what I plan to continue reading. You should go read yourself. I need to get back to the library and stop buying books because I was good on my library shit for a while, and then I like started going to Source Booksellers, and I was just like, I could buy anything. I'm supporting Black women. Listen, I gotta stop buying books. I gotta slow down a little bit. Yeah, no, it's a good time. I need to go read some more Parable of the Sower right now today. I'm actually gonna go get lunch, and then I'm gonna read some more Parable of the Sower, and try to hopefully finish that and start the Containment. But yeah, that's really what's been going on. And those are my plans. If you're not in a book club, join a book club. If you don't know what to read, if you're interested in comics, I gave you some great comic recommendations. If you are not like a super big reader, but you want to start reading something, I think you should read something that's interesting to you. I'm not really going to give you a recommendation. But I talked about a lot of books. So like if any of those interested you, you should go read them. Yeah, I'm going to done. I have to stop. What is wrong with me?